subscribe to our channel, and watch our video till the end. The OVO Arena in London shimmered under a canopy of white light, the air thick with anticipation and unfinished business. Heavyweight boxing has a different kind of tension, slower, heavier, more dangerous. Every punch can change a life. Jermaine Franklin made the walk first, composed and unreadable, stepping into hostile territory with the quiet confidence of an undefeated man who believed this was his breakthrough. Across the ring stood Dillian, the Body Snatcher, Whyte, the hardened veteran, scarred by wars with the elite, carrying the weight of expectation from a home crowd desperate to see him reclaim his path toward another world title run. The referee's instructions were brief, but the stakes were enormous. Franklin was fighting for a rival. Whyte was fighting for relevance. The bell rang, and the arena fell into that peculiar hush that only heavyweights can command. Whyte advanced behind a probing jab, testing range, measuring distance. But Franklin wasn't intimidated. He snapped a sharp jab to the body, then flicked it upstairs with speed that forced Whyte to reset. The American's hands were quick, surprisingly quick, and his timing early was sharp. Whyte pressed forward, looking to impose his size, but Franklin's counters landed clean enough to quiet the crowd. It wasn't explosive yet. It was tactical, calculated. Two big men feeling for weaknesses, each aware that one mistake could tilt the night. The first rounds weren't about domination. They were about information, and both fighters were studying hard. By the third and fourth rounds, Whyte began to shift gears. The probing jab turned into something more purposeful. He stepped closer, shortening the distance, digging heavy hooks into Franklin's midsection. Thud, thud. The kind of body shots that don't always excite the crowd immediately, but echo loudly in the later rounds. Franklin continued firing sharp combinations, mixing levels beautifully, jab to the body, right hand upstairs, showing a composure that suggested he belonged on this stage. Whyte's punches sounded different. They carried weight. Franklin landed a clean right hand midway through the fourth that snapped Whyte's head slightly, drawing a murmur from the audience. Whyte barely reacted. He planted his feet in the center of the ring, high guard tight, and responded with a digging left hook under Franklin's elbow. The exchanges became more physical. Shoulders bumped. Gloves scraped across sweat-slick skin. Whyte leaned his weight on the American in clinches, making him work every second. The pace was demanding, perhaps more demanding than Franklin had ever experienced. This wasn't just about speed or combinations now, it was about endurance. Whyte's corner kept repeating the message, keep going to the body, and he obeyed. Every rib shot was an investment, every close-range exchange a deposit into Franklin's gas tank. The American still looked sharp, still confident, but the comfort of the early rounds was beginning to fade. The fight was tightening, and the veteran's strategy was slowly taking shape. Part 3. The Momentum Battle. As the fight entered the second half, the atmosphere shifted. Round 7 felt heavier. Franklin sensed something, perhaps that Whyte's output was dipping slightly, and he stepped forward with renewed urgency. Quick combinations, snapping jabs, sharp counters. For a moment, the momentum leaned his way. Whyte absorbed a right hand and responded with a short uppercut inside, a reminder of his power. The exchanges grew more intense, less patient. Franklin's speed was impressive, but Whyte's shots carried authority. In the eighth, they traded in the pocket, sweat flying under the lights, the crowd roaring with every thudding impact. Franklin's corner urged him to attack the body, believing Whyte might be slowing, and there were hints of fatigue in the Brit's posture. But every time Franklin strung together a burst of offense, Whyte answered with something heavier. A ripping hook downstairs, a clubbing right hand. The ninth round was brutally competitive, neither man backing down. Franklin's chin held firm, but the bodywork was accumulating. Whyte wasn't dominating, but he was imposing himself physically. This wasn't a clean technical masterclass. It was a grinding heavyweight contest where willpower mattered as much as skill. The fight felt close, uncomfortably close for both corners. And as they returned to their stools before round 10, there was a shared understanding. The final rounds would decide everything. Round 10 began with urgency. Whyte stepped behind his jab, pressing forward with more intent. Franklin answered with 3 and 4 punch combinations, refusing to be bullied. The crowd sensed the importance of every exchange. Then it came, a booming right hand from Whyte that cracked against Franklin's head late in the round. The sound echoed. Franklin's legs didn't buckle, but his head snapped back sharply, and the timing of the bell may have spared him further trouble. It was the most eye-catching punch of the fight so far. Momentum swung again. In the 11th, fatigue was evident in both men, breathing heavier, shoulders rising and falling between exchanges. Whyte pressed Franklin to the ropes and unleashed short uppercuts inside, trying to break him down. Franklin refused to fold. He fired back in bursts, showing heart and resilience. This was no longer just about tactics, it was about pride. Each fighter had moments. Each round felt razor-thin. Whyte's heavier punches were visible. Franklin's combinations were sharp and frequent. The judges would have difficult decisions to make. As the 11th closed, neither man looked certain. 12 rounds of tension were about to culminate in 3 final minutes of truth. The 12th round began with urgency from both corners. "Last round," echoed through the arena. Whyte advanced, throwing chopping right hands and digging one final series of hooks to the body. Franklin stood his ground, trading bravely, unwilling to concede anything in enemy territory. Inside the final minute, Whyte landed the cleaner, heavier shots, a crunching left hook and a short uppercut that drew a roar from the crowd. Franklin answered, but his punches lacked the same thud. The wear of 12 rounds was visible on his face, swelling, reddened skin, the marks of a hard fight. The bell rang, and both men raised their arms, unsure. It had been competitive, close, brutally honest. As they stood at center ring awaiting the verdict, the arena buzzed with uncertainty. The announcer read the scorecards majority